Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at vanta.com.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Today's episode is sponsored by Sports Pro. If you're like me and want to stay on top of what's really happening in the sports industry, you need to check out Sports Pro Plus. Coming from Sports Pro, the number one business that connects, educates, and inspires the international sporting community. Sports Pro Plus is the ultimate hub for sports business knowledge with exclusive content, data, and analysis that keeps me up to speed with everything happening across the industry. And right now, listeners of the Sports Management Podcast get an exclusive 20% off with the code SMPOD20. That's SMPOD20. All you need to do is head over to sportspro.com/membership and start exploring today. Welcome to episode 225 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is Vance Morris. And in this episode, we will uncover what sports teams can learn from Disney when it comes to service and fan experience. We spoke about how Vance went from a security guard at a birth control factory to working for Disney, why he was a lousy employee, why his business charges 40% more than its competitors, taking the leap to start his own business and his wife getting sick only 3 days later, and much more. Vance Morris, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
I appreciate it, Marcus. Thanks so much.
It's great to have you on the show. You are a consultant now, having your own consultant business, have worked for Disney for many years, and working a lot with guest experience. Today we will talk a little bit about your background and what you have learned and how that can be implemented into the sports industry.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Pretty much everything, even though I work a lot with businesses, I have worked with a couple of sports teams, and everything is interchangeable. If you're dealing with people, everything we're going to talk about is appropriate.
Exactly. So let's start from the beginning. You went from working as a security guard at a birth control factory to designing guest experiences at Disney. So that's quite a journey. So how did it all start, and how has your journey been like?
Yeah. I promise you I will be the only birth control factory security guard you will meet all day today. I don't think you'll meet another. But that was a job I had while I was in college, but it's instructive because it gets people's attention. And most people won't ever meet one of those in their life. But so after college, my first real job was with the Walt Disney Company down in Orlando. And I was on the opening team of a number of their resorts, operated a number of their resorts, and really saw how a big company can still deliver really, really personal, magical experiences, even down to just to one person.
At your time at Disney, you have described it as a masterclass in experience design. So obviously Disney is, a lot. When you think about Disney, you think about, happy memories and creativity and a lot of other things that comes up. But when you say masterclass in experience design, what do you mean with that?
Sure. So every business has boring and mundane things that they have to do day in and day out to keep the business up and running. Answering the telephone, answering emails, greeting people in your office. Disney has just figured out a way to create experiences out of all of those individual things. For instance, answering the telephone. How you answer the phone could be as boring as, thank you for calling Dave's Insurance. How can I help you? We've all heard that before. Or do you have something that separates you from everybody else in your industry? I did work with a number of insurance agents, and this one gentleman was loved rock and roll. I mean, he had pictures of The Who and Led Zeppelin and autographed guitars and everything. And, we decided that answering the telephone was one of the big areas where we could see improvement and help filter out people that would make a bad prospect or would not be a good customer for them. So we took this whole rock and roll insurance thing, and one of his employees actually came up with the way they were going to answer the phone. Thank you for calling for Dave's Allstate, the agency that rocks. It's a little corny, yeah, but it does a couple of things. One, nobody else is answering the phone that way, and they can't. So it's separating you from the rest of the industry. And two, if you remember, your marketing is designed to do two things: attract the people you want to do business with and repel the people that you don't. So just by answering the phone this way, we're sifting, sorting, and screening out people that would be a bad client for them.
No, that's really interesting. And I know in sports now, it's a lot of talk about fan experiences and how to connect with your fans from the moment they thinking about the game, buying the ticket, arriving to the arena, the experience at the arena, but also how can you connect with the consumer when there is not a game day, when there is a day off or an away game, stuff like that. So a lot of, I guess, learnings from what you just said can be implemented from what you did there at Disney and into the sports industry when it comes to teams or other rights holders.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that you just said there that are really vital to keeping your fans excited, keeping your fans engaged, and it is on the days off. What is the team doing to engage with the fans to keep them excited about the team? I'm a firm believer in doing things by the mail. So, I mean, if it's a local team, you probably are in a local geography. So reaching your fans by the mail is something that I would fully recommend people do. Because, I mean, if you do it just by email, well, it can go into the spam folder or it might not ever get there. And then, okay, well, is it really interesting that I'm going to open that up and read it versus the other 100 emails I've got in my inbox? But if you send something through the mail, I mean, there's not much competition anymore in the mailbox. So, you can send newsletters, postcards, team gifts, stickers, something for the back of the car, things to help keep your fans engaged. And then all of the things, that happen between ticket purchase and the actual event, there's a lot of time that could elapse. And so how do you keep them excited? Disney, you spend a lot of time waiting at Disney. I mean, you wait in line to see the ride, you wait in line to, for food, etc. So Disney has something called Linertainment, where they entertain you while you're in line, so the wait doesn't feel so bad. And I think in our businesses, we can certainly, if you buy the ticket today and it's going to be a month before you go to the game, well, there's 30 days for somebody to, well, I don't, the game's on a Tuesday. Maybe I don't want to go, or, well, that was kind of expensive. Maybe I want to sell the ticket. So there's a lot of time for people to change their mind. So within that time period, what are you doing so that they don't get buyer's remorse and so that they are excited to come to the game when it arrives? And you're not really compressing time. You're just making it feel like it's not so bad, and you keep them entertained and engaged.
I like that. And I used to work for an amusement park in my home city in Sweden, and they had the same thing, as you said, like this line activity that when you're waiting for one of the rides, you could play a mobile game that you scan the QR code and you play some game while waiting. But how do you think this could be implemented into sports? You said from you buy the ticket and then there's 30 days up until the game. What are some things that rights holders can do to keep the customer intrigued?
Yeah, sure. So again, just sending stuff, whether it be, scarf or hat or whatever. And then, if you're not sending something physical, because there is an investment there. So if the team is not all that financially sound, we do a lot of those virtual happy hours or virtual parties where everybody just gets together. It if it's done well, it can be really good. But doing a Zoom with 200 fans on the Zoom, and everybody's got their favorite drink and their favorite team hat and everything. Certainly, there is that. You could be doing interviews with the players and coaches and team managers, and getting them excited. Okay, what are the strategies you're going to use next week? Versus this team, and really, having their own YouTube channel, having their own podcast, where they can continue to interact with their fans in a way that the fans consume, because everybody consumes entertainment and media differently. Me, I'm a reader. I like to read things. Other people love video. Great. So we need to have a presence on YouTube or TikTok. Others love to listen to podcasts because maybe they have they're in the gym for a half hour or they have a long commute. And so they'll listen to a podcast. I think every team should have at minimum a podcast, if not a YouTube channel. And it doesn't have to be overly produced. It just needs to be there. Get a good host who can interview the players and take deep dives. People love the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, you look at Netflix now. I mean, there's US football. It's got behind the scenes on everything. I think there's something on Arsenal now from the UK. People love the behind the scenes, or the what is this person really like in real life? And, you have the camera that follows them for a day or something like that. I think a lot of that can be done, between ticket purchase and game day. And now you also have a huge library of content that can continue to be repurposed over and over again.
No, that's a really good point. And of course, the digital content is really important in this day and age. And we're having, the younger generation, they are living on social media and their phones, and that's where they consume most of their content. But you said a very interesting thing in the beginning, that with regular mail, that you don't have as much competition there. But do you think that you still can reach the younger demographic with the snail mail, so to call it?
Oh, 100%. And I think my kids are 23 and 26, so they would be in that generation. And my son is a big Manchester United fan. And there's two local Manchester United clubs in the Washington, D.C. area. And one of them has a print newsletter. I mean, it's nothing extravagant. It's a 4-page. You open it up and, it's got, some team bio, and maybe, there's actually a section in there for the player's favorite recipe. I mean, who knew, right? So yes, I think 100% getting in front of them with something like that, putting contests in the mail, stuff where it's interactive, where the fan actually has to do something, gets them involved with the team, and now they feel like they're part of the team.
So this is the lead up, let's say, from you bought a ticket until you go to the game. But when you're there on game day, I know at Disney you talked about on stage, that employees considered to be on stage. So how can that be implemented? First of all, what does it mean? And also, how can the sports industry apply that at their games?
Yeah, so Disney takes a lot from theater as their business terminology. So on stage is all of the guest areas. So the restaurants, the rides, everything that a guest would see as they're walking through. Backstage or off stage is literally like being at a theater. All the props are in the back. They move the trash, and, food and things are done. Things that you don't want your guests to see, because it'll ruin the image or ruin the show if they saw all of that stuff going on. And I think that a lot of it is, especially for the onstage stuff, is not just a physical onstage, but a attitudinal onstage as well. So do your ticket takers and your concessions workers and people, are they, leaning up against a wall, their face buried in a telephone? Or, which would be really, that's bad show. Or are they attentive and looking to be what Disney calls aggressively friendly? So if people are so at Disney, if you're lost, yeah, you're looking at the map and you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I go next? That's a visual cue for the employees to go, oh, they look lost. I should probably go help them. And we'll go over and say, hey, can I help you find something? Same thing in sports. You're looking at your tickets and you're like, okay, well, where do I go to get to this section and this seat? And, you can tell when somebody looks lost. Well, instead of just sitting back with your arms crossed, the employee should be going up and say, hey, can I help you find your seat? Let me walk you over there. The onstage areas also need to be presentable. At Disney, we did what was called a good show, bad show walkthrough. So at the beginning of every shift, a supervisor would walk through the entire work area and note things that might need to be fixed. Maybe there's a light bulb out or the plants are dead or something needs to be painted. And all of that is documented and then acted on and given to the different departments to make sure that all that stuff is fixed. When you're going to, trash laying on the ground is something that is detracting from the experience. We know that we get it. And I think having a fanatical attention to detail is what's really going to help that on-stage appearance for sports teams and arenas and things like that. Does the trash lay on the floor until the end of the game and then everybody just comes by with a big broom and sweeps it up? Or do you have somebody whose job it is throughout the entire game to be looking for trash and just doing little sweep ups so that it looks like it's ready to go? Is there abundance in the food service or abundance in the merchandising? Or does it look like there's one hat hanging there and it looks kind of sad? Those kinds of details detract from the experience. And any one of them is not the end of the world. But if you add 4 or 5 little detractions up, now people are like, well, geez, I just paid $50 for this ticket. This isn't worth $50. This is like worth 10. And so now you have problems with your pricing. So the more you can create the experiences on stage, pay attention to detail, making sure the employees are dressed well. Here in Maryland, I own a number of home service businesses. And a couple of the rules I have are, 1, you're not allowed to wear cologne. And 2, you're not allowed to smoke while you're on the clock. Because there's nothing worse than, running into the Marlboro man who just smelled like he took a shower in some kind of Axe or cologne or something disgusting. That detracts from the show. So having those kinds of rules in place, really letting your employees know, hey, this is what we need to do to create a great experience. And here are the rules, here are the guidelines, and this is how we should move forward.
Yeah, I like that. And as you said, it's important to feel that the customers get value for their money. And I know that you have talked about also tellable moments. So that goes in a little bit to the experience as well, right?
Yeah. So people are going to talk about your team or the experience. They are. We need to direct what they're saying. We need to give them the words to use. And preferably it's positive because they're going to talk about how the game went. Whether the team won or lost, they're still going to say, oh my God, team lost, but man, they had this incredible, Italian sausage that had this, that, and the other thing on it. And at the end of the interaction or at the end of the game, what you want your fans saying is, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened at the stadium today or at the game today. And you want that to have obviously a positive answer, not a negative one. So what can you do that is maybe different from other stadiums or other teams? I'm sure you've heard of the Savannah Bananas here in the U.S. baseball team. I mean, completely I mean, he has taken Ringling Brothers Circus and Disney and combined it with baseball. It is a show. And do you need to go to that extent? No, but can you take some of the things that they are doing, with, say you have a baseball team. Okay, well, sometimes baseball can get a little slow. What do you do between innings to entertain people? Certainly, soccer matches, you don't have a lot of time because, well, there's not very many breaks in the game. But what are the experiences that are happening in the stands? Are the seats comfortable? Are they clean? Is there, access to concessions? Do you have a VIP area? Do you have an ultra VIP area? Because those kinds of things will get people talking about the stadium or about the team.
For sure. And I think many people associate creativity with spontaneity many times, but I know that you're a big fan of systems and that system creates freedom.
Yeah.
What is the thinking behind that?
Sure. So when I opened up the Yacht and Beach Club with Disney, we walked into the training room, and you have to remember this is before there was a computer on every desk and nobody had telephones. I mean, we used big, thick binders of paper. And we walked into the room and there were just stacks of binders everywhere. I'm like, what's all this? And my boss was like, well, these are all of the SOPs and OJTs on how to open and operate a Disney resort. And you'd think like, oh my God, that's a lot. But if you can get your employees, and this is what Disney does, is you learn your job and it becomes like muscle memory. It's rote. You don't have to think about it. And if you do that, now you have the freedom to do all of the nice little things that Disney is known for. So if your job is to sweep the foyer or sweep the concessions area, and you know that that's what you got to do, and you're doing it, and then, but you're not thinking about it. And then somebody's, dad's taking a picture of the family. Well, that guy should immediately say, hey, why don't you go ahead and get in the picture? I'll take the picture for you, or, the kid's ice cream cone falls on the ground. Okay, great. Immediately go in and get the kid a new ice cream cone. I mean, it doesn't cost much, but you want the kid to have a great experience, because if the kid has a great experience, mom and dad will have a good experience because the kid isn't cranky. And then you go ahead and you clean up the dumped over ice cream cone. So it's really prioritizing, what is important to the business, what is important to the team. And, you have to understand what you're selling. So Disney knows that it's selling happiness and memories. That's what they sell. Yes, they run a theme park and hotels and TV stations and everything. But at the end of the day, they sell happiness. So what are our teams out there selling? I'm sure they're selling entertainment. They're selling fun. How do you make sure that your fans are actually having fun? Or are they annoyed when something goes wrong? So I think those systems, when your employees know exactly what their job is and they don't even have to think about the job, it gives them time and freedom in their brain to think, oh, look, somebody needs help. I should go over and help them.
And also your analogy with the kid and the ice cream cone there, used also because there is so much cheaper to keep a customer than to acquire a new one, right?
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So when you already have gotten the customer there, it's so important to keep them coming back instead of going out and acquiring new ones.
And that is true for any business. And I think a lot of businesses, sports teams included, forget how much money it costs to get a new customer. I mean, in one of my businesses, it cost me $126 to get a new customer in the front door. Now, that's a lot of money. But when I look at it, it only costs me $22 a year to keep the customer. So every time I serve an existing customer, I'm $100 more profitable. And the experience that you're providing is going to determine whether they become a lifelong fan or, well, okay, that was nice, but I'm not going back. I'll just watch it on TV. So yeah, having that frame of mind is vital. You got to know your numbers.
Definitely. I'm interested in when you decided to leave Disney and start your own different ventures. How was that thought process like? Why did you come to that decision?
Well, I make a lousy employee. I don't like to be told what to do. Just ask my two ex-wives. Just don't like. I don't like to be told what to do. And I had a couple of jobs in between Disney and going out on my own. And I managed to get fired from both of them. So I figured, well, I should probably go start my own thing. And so I started the home service businesses here in Maryland. Started them all from scratch, so from zero. So it's not like I just bought into a business or had something handed to me. Got to market the business, advertise, do the service, et cetera, et cetera. And as the business grew, I knew that one, I was going to be marketing to an affluent clientele. Affluent people have plenty of money and they're more apt to pay for an experience than somebody who's coupon clipping or pinching their pennies or things like that. And that served me very well. So to this day, this is 18 years later, our company pricing is about 40% higher than our closest competitor. We're still busy. We have a wait list. And as we went, we continued to not rest on our laurels, so to speak, but we are constantly doing things to improve the experience. Because, well, one, it gets kind of boring if you do the same thing all the time for 18 years straight. But two, as we improve the experience and we improve the value that we're delivering, we have what's called price elasticity. We can increase our pricing without the risk of losing a customer because the value and the experience is there. And I think, teams that have tremendous value or delivering value, excuse me, and are delivering the experience can charge more for their tickets than somebody who just, okay, show up, here's your hot dog, watch the game and leave.
So, we talked about that before, the value of money there, or basically, like you said, the experience wasn't worth $50, it would have been worth 10. And you said you're priced 40% above. So are you making then a 40% better service than your other customers? So why are they still keep coming to you for a higher price?
Great question. And I would like to think that we do our job 40% better, or, we do a couple of the businesses are for cleaning. I'd love to say we clean 40% better, but if I'm being honest with myself, we're not. There's only so many ways to clean carpet, but the value that we deliver though is far and above what my competitors do. A couple of examples. We offer warranties and guarantees, which my competitors don't. So there is a value to warranties and guarantees. We offer a concierge service, and it's an annual fee. And if one of our concierge clients calls in, they get put right to the front of the line. And so, if, somebody had sloppy kids and they, drop the hot dog on the floor, we'll come out probably definitely same day, but probably within just a few hours to take care of them. So that value is there. Also, I talked about the no smoking and the no cologne wearing. If you have somebody coming into your home and they stink like that, it's very off-putting. And when somebody or when a customer or a prospect is annoyed or is irritated, they don't spend money. They might, they'll have you do the service, but if you were to try to upsell them or, offer a different service, something psychologically with them is saying, I don't think so. How we treat the homes that we go into, we treat them with, complete respect. We do a lot of entertaining. So, we have to get into somebody's home to do the cleaning. So we do an exaggeration of wiping our feet on this carpet. Then we put little booties on. And at the end of the cleaning, we actually give little booties to the kids to wear out the house. It's all of the little things. You just keep adding all these little things together, and it equates to a fantastic overall experience.
It's about going that extra mile.
100%. You go an extra quarter mile. That's all you need. The bar is set so low these days that all you have to do is just a couple inches above that bar, and you're good. I mean, I'm making fun. Yes, going the extra mile is what you need to do, but your competitors are not doing it. So just a little bit of effort on your part, and you'll be far and above.
Why do you think that is? Because I know Dana White, if you know, from the president of the UFC, he says the same things, that if you're a young person today, if you just like have a little bit of drive, you will run everybody over, because that just doesn't exist in most people nowadays. So why do you think the bar is so low nowadays?
I think one, a lot of people are lazy, and that's everywhere. It doesn't matter. US, Europe, doesn't matter. I think it's just some laziness there. And I think that a lot of companies and teams are trying to be everything to everyone. And when you do that, your pricing goes down. And when you become a generalist, or when you have something that's average, you can't increase your prices, which is actually, it just compounds. So if you can't raise your prices, that means you can't hire that one extra person who might make or break the entire experience. But because we're only charging a little bit, everybody's so price conscious these days. And I think that having just a little bit of a thought, see, everybody thinks that they're delivering a great experience. Let me give you a statistic I saw earlier this year. So there was a survey of businesses, and when they asked the owners, do you deliver great service? 80% of the owners said yes. Yes, we deliver great service. But when they went and they surveyed the customers of those businesses, only 8% of the customers said that company delivers great service. So there's a huge disconnect. And I think a lot of managers, owners, they're stuck in the day to day, and they can't see that the standards are slipping, or they have no standards. And I think that's what really separates the great companies from the average, is that you've got to have set service standards. How fast do you answer the telephone? Is it within 5 rings, 3 rings, 1 ring? What is your standard? You greet somebody at the ticket counter. What is the timing, and what do you want them to do? Do you want them to just kind of have their head down and say, yes, what can I do for you? Or do you want them to smile and make eye contact and say, hey, welcome to the game, welcome to the stadium today. It's going to be a great game. Here's your tickets. 2 very different ways to do it, but certainly one is well below the bar and the other one is above the bar.
Yeah. It's that sense of urgency, right? That you talk about, that when you're getting something on your table, that you treat it with a sense of urgency. So you're answering fast, you're doing it as, every case is important.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things, if you want to get your employees engaged in this, is they have to understand the why we do things. We're pretty good at telling them what to do. We're probably pretty good at telling them how to do it. What we don't do is tell the employees, why do we do it this way? And once the employees understand why, then they're a lot more engaged, and they're a lot more apt to follow and deliver the standards that you're looking for. The reason we, greet a guest in 10 seconds or less is so that they feel recognized, and that they will, make a purchase or make a larger purchase. Why is that important? Well, it keeps you in a job. If the guests aren't happy and they're not served right, then they're not going to make the purchases. And if sales go down, so do the employees' hours. So it's really showing them the entire picture of how, the business works.
Yeah, definitely. And let's talk about leadership and, creating this culture. So you have led large hospitality teams and small business teams. We have talked about this thing about keeping the best service possible. How do you lead and create this culture for your teams?
Sure. Well, certainly it starts with hiring, and I hire people that have a heart for service, people that will, I don't care what your job used to be. I can train you to do anything. I can train you to clean carpet. I can train you to carry a tray in a restaurant. What I can't train you to do is be nice. I can't train you to be on time. These are things that you have to bring to the job. And so when you're interviewing, you have to ask questions that are going to get beyond the actual things that they do and really learn, okay, are they customer centric? Are they proactive? Once we have them, it really starts with your new hire orientation and the beginning of the job. Do you tell them, do they understand the culture of the team? What has the team been through? Because a new employee, if the team's been around 50 years, a new employee doesn't know how the team started and how, the owner or the manager, had to, they had to sell this to build the team, and, they almost went bankrupt. And then, we got this player, and all of a sudden we were really busy and people were flocking, and then we just build, build, build. People have to understand that culture. Disney has something called traditions, and it is a full day and a half of learning about Disney before you ever go to your new work location. And then I think, as far as management and leadership, there isn't anything I will ask an employee to do that I won't do myself. And they will see me. And actually, a lot of times I much rather be doing the work than out there talking to guests and fans and things like that. I would much rather be sweeping the street but so you're showing by example that you're willing to do these things, and you have to be congruent with your messaging. If you want your employees to be aggressively friendly and seek out guest contact, well, you need to mirror that as well as the leader.
Yeah, so leading by example, more or less, that's what you're saying, right?
Yep, 100%.
We have talked about this. There is a lot of opportunities out there for someone who's working hard. So, for the young people listening that they want to either, work in the sports industry, maybe become an entrepreneur, what are some advice that you have for them?
Make connections. So my third son is a freshman at university this year in Philadelphia. We are big Philadelphia Eagles fans for U.S. football, and he met the COO of the Eagles at a college event, and the COO told him, "You want to work at the Eagles Stadium, you got to stay in touch with me. You've got to continue to network. You've got to continue to, be out and about." He says, "Look, if you're just selling popcorn, that's fine. You're in the arena. You're in the environment. Doesn't matter what your job is. Just get into the environment. Use social media, preferably LinkedIn, to connect with management of the teams and say, hey, look, and my son did this." He goes, the COO asked him, he says, "Do you have a LinkedIn account?" My son's, no. I mean, he's 18 years old. And he says, "Well, first, go get yourself a LinkedIn account. Second, I should be the first person that you connect with so that we can stay in touch while you're at school and we can get you into the Eagles organization." So networking, like nobody's been volunteering, especially if it's a small team and you can't, they can't afford to pay for certain things. Being in and around the sports world will help you, and it's building your resume. It doesn't matter whether you were a ticket taker or concessions. Yes, I worked at Eagle Stadium for 3 years while I was in college. Looks a lot better than, I worked at McDonald's. So just get into that whole atmosphere, I think, is the first step.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And I like to end on a networking note, but one question before we get there. Has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Bumps? Are you kidding? Bumps? They're not bumps. They're freaking mountains. Yeah, we ran into stuff. You run into a brick wall all the time. It's how you react to that. And what do you do? When I first started my first business, we were supposed to live off of my wife's salary. She's a regional manager for Starbucks while I was building the business. Well, 3 days after I signed the contracts for my new business, she had a cerebral aneurysm and went into the neuro ICU for 11 days. And then she's fine now, but she was, for 2 years, was unable to work. So our income went, overnight, literally down to zero. And I'm like, well, I guess I could go get another job. I'll be miserable, or I can make this thing work. And so you just put your nose to the grindstone and you do what has to be done to make your business work. And I think it's how you react to every one of those roadblocks, speed bumps, brick walls. How do you react? What do you do? And are you just going to cave in and fold and say, oh, well, I tried, I'm done? Or do you just pick yourself up and say, all right, what's next?
It's funny you say that. I talked to in a previous episode about a guy who started his own swimming company, like swim school. And he said it wasn't until like year 7 got successful. Like, he was making money. And I said, what happened that year? He's like, I ran out of money. I had to. So it's a little bit against that. When you have no other choice, sometimes that actually might work in your favor, right?
100%. And it really is a mindset. And one of the things, especially if you are starting any kind of business, whether sports related or not, is you have to seek out and surround yourself with experts, mentors, coaches. I mean, even if you can't afford to pay for a coach, go and get a book by Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, or, start to learn and get the right mindset. And if you can join a mastermind or a networking group, you should do it. Because being an entrepreneur is a lonely place to be, and isolation kills entrepreneurs. So you have to be out amongst people just like you in order to survive. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, if someone wants to get in touch with you, is LinkedIn the best place?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Vance Morris. I don't think there's too many of us there. And then if they want to reach out, I have a hot sheet, which is 52 ways to wow your customer without breaking the bank. So it's 52 no or low cost ways to really wow your customers. And you can get that at wow52ways.com.
That's awesome. So what I told you before, I'd like to end on a networking question. You mentioned the importance of networking. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
Oh, wow. Certainly, there is one sports marketing professor from St. Joe's University in Philadelphia. Would be great. And if you're looking for marketing person who's brilliant with marketing, Kevin Donlin is absolutely amazing, brilliant copywriter. And I mean, he could sell, snowballs to Eskimos, no problem.
That sounds good. Vance, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
I appreciate it, Marcus. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.